Do you guys want to do Blood Meridian? Blood Meridian?
Meridian.
Meridian.
Say it again.
Meridian,
Blood Meridian.
like prime meridian.
All right. By Cormac McCarthy. So we read this one recently for our book club. We took a break from World War II and fantasy to dive into the Wild West. I actually don't know if it's Wild West. Is that the same time period? Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah.
Cowboys, Indians.
Yeah.
So
Is
it's
Steve frozen?
or he's just really still.
I think Steve's frozen.
I thought he was just like mesmerized by my talking. But no. Okay. So anyways, now that Steve's back, we recently read Blood Meridian for our book club. It is a fiction read, but it's based on some true events that happened during that time. Right?
Yep. Historical fiction.
Yeah. Historical fiction. That's good. Good genre to put it as. Steve gets to do our synopsis because your brother picked the book, so this defaults to you.
So, Blood Meridian is a story about a kid. And this kid, it seems he is trying to find himself. He's lost. He doesn't really have a purpose in life. And all of a sudden he stumbles upon this gang of individuals led by a character called the Judge. And it's a little fuzzy what they do, but generally they go around and they kill people, murder people, scalp people. It's very bloody, and they have these misadventures together where they go across the Southwest, I think, or Mexico, that area, and they try to survive and thrive and figure out what they're supposed to be doing. They try to make money. They get involved with politics a little bit. And yeah, it's really a retelling of their story of really brutal actions during the Mexican-American War, I think, or around that time period.
I wish you would do all our synopsises.
Yeah, you're really good at them, Steve.
I don't know. That one's tough because I think we'll get into this in the reviews in a little bit, but when you talk about the plot and like what goes on in the story, the biggest sticking point is the brutality and the brutality of this gang as they go through the Midwest, or not the Midwest, the Southwest.
Let's just do spoilers. So don't worry about trying to like not say anything. But Steve, what did you rate this book?
So I have 2 ratings actually, which is unusual. I know. Is it A through F, right?
Yeah.
I get that wrong every time. So if I was reading this and I was a book critic, 10 out of 10, easy, perfect book, which is a rating that I wouldn't normally give people. But if I was like a critic and I was like critically reading this, it was part of a class, whatever, perfect in the sense of the writing was beautiful. The writing, the scenery, the way it sets up, the image of brutality in the Southwest is something that it's amazing in that regard. But if I was rating it as an individual and I'm more of a casual reader, I don't like to take things too seriously, then I would give it like a 7 probably, or sorry, a B. I would give it a B because it's very violent, very brutal. It's very hard to read. You know, I kind of left the book not knowing I mean, I know what happens, but it's kind of difficult to pinpoint what's going on. And, you know, every other page, there's some violent war or some violent killing, something like that. And that's just not really up my alley. So for me personally, didn't enjoy it as much. But if I was like sitting there and I was like a scholar and I was a critic and I was going to write like a formal review of it, it's a very, very good book. And I would recommend it from that perspective.
To kind of go off that, I think this would be honestly a really good book to read in like English lit class in college or whatnot. Like there's so much you can analyze from it and like read between the lines and dive deeper into. But yeah, like you said, like to just read it for fun as a casual read was hard. But Andrea, what did you rate it?
I rated it an F. It was my one and only F ever rated for any of the books. So yeah, it was real bloody, gory. I really didn't see the plot. Like they're just literally riding around, gang style, murdering people, things, you know, whatever, animals, anything. I did not finish this book. I was like, yep, they killed a puppy. I was done. I shut it. Didn't read anything after that. So yes, F.
Wow. If they hadn't killed dogs, would you still have rated it an F?
I mean, I didn't get anything out of this book. Like, I mean, they murder babies, they murder, like, I don't know. At that point, I was like, okay, I'm done. There's no point in me reading this. I do not like it. Um, I don't know. Yeah,
Mhm.
it would still be an F. I mean, there's so many murderous things that, like, I don't know.
It was a lot.
But yeah, that was the last straw for me. I just shut it on the way in the car, and Corey's like, "What's up?" And I'm like, "I'm done with this book."
Are you someone who frequently visits the did the dog die site that Liz told us about?
I have not looked. I did not look at that.
I do if we're in a show that has a dog. I just go like, does the dog die? And it tells you real quick.
Or
Because
the
I always do
movie.
that when it happens in the
Mhm.
stories. Liz, what'd you rate it?
Did a B minus C plus. I struggled because I thought the writing was really good. Like I liked the writing style, right? And I liked the summaries at the beginning of every chapter. And I thought it was like an important book to read. It's the Western version of All's Quiet on the Western Front in my mind, with a little bit less plot, to Andrea's point. So it was like good. And I thought like the idea was good, is like don't romanticize like these times. They weren't as like wonderful as like the John Wayne movies like lead you to believe. But at the same time, there was so much casual violence in every single chapter that it was like hard for me to mentally get through. So I was torn.
It's interesting. All of our ratings are all over the place this time. I feel like typically we're all fairly on the same page. Mine was a C minus, D plus, that kind of range. Because I don't even like watching gory things. Like when we were watching the Dahmer show, episode 2, I'm like, oh hell no, I cannot watch this. And I feel like this book was that level of cringe to me, to where like I just couldn't even like read some of the passages. I'm like, this is so sad. I get why it's important to retell like those times in history and whatnot, but it was tough to get through. I had to also like spark note a lot of things to read the overviews, just to like make sure I was actually following what was happening. Sometimes it was a little confusing to me. And then, but what I did like about the book was the writing was good, but I also liked how he didn't name the kid. I liked kind of that level of mystery to it. Like you didn't actually need to know his name, but you just followed him through like what, 300 pages and learned so much about his life, but you never even knew his name. That was kind of a neat point to me.
That was cool.
Yeah.
I did like the like summaries at the beginning of each chapter. I don't think I've read a book where they do that, to be honest.
I would read another book by him. I actually have one because John said we might be reading this, so I got it. Has anyone read this yet?
John
No.
has.
John has. Steve, have you?
John
Nope.
liked that one, but I don't know how much he liked this
Yeah.
one as much. But yeah, he mentioned he liked that book.
Yeah.
I think John said the other book he read by him, I think it's that one, had less violence, but like same writing style. So that would be good. I would read that.
Yeah. I'm gonna give that one a try. But hopefully none of the horses die. I bet they will. But
Can we talk real quick about the most traumatizing scene, everyone's most traumatizing scene in the book?
yes. I have to say mine was the dead babies on the tree.
That was bad. Mine was when the judge had like they'd taken like prisoners, and he befriended a child, and he befriended the child and like played with it and then killed the child, because that was like a whole different level of like awful. Like it was pointless and awful.
Yeah. Why did he even take that kid? I did not understand that at all.
I don't, the judge is the devil. I don't know.
We've already said some really good scenes. I was gonna say the dead baby thing, but I'll switch to something else. I thought the scene where one of his friends or someone in a gang, they get a wound on their arm, and the wound,
Oh,
it goes
yeah.
into graphic description of like what it smelled like, and there was maggots in it, and this stench and the rotting away of the skin. And I think later on the guys had it up in a jar, or maybe it was another guy.
There
So
are
yeah,
a
it's
lot
not
of heads in
a lot
jars.
of heads in jars. Yeah, lots of scalps, lots of body parts. Who knows where?
It's just crazy to me that a lot of these stories were based on like true events in time. Like I definitely would never want to live in the West.
Andrea, what was the scene that did it for you?
The puppy death. That was the end when they killed the puppy for no apparent reason. I was done.
Like the no reason behind doing these things, I think, is what got me a lot. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah, they're just like running around killing everything in sight. That's pretty much all they do. Goats,
Yeah.
cats, puppies, babies, people, anything.
And like it was crazy when they also went through that town. I think it was the same town with the babies on the tree. Was just like the whole town and animals, like everything was just like slaughtered.
Mhm.
And I don't know, it's a very gory and eerie book to read.
was
I
there
But
the
you
one
know,
where there's just like one cat alive wandering through town?
But Steve,
if you were in like a college class or something, or you're an academic person, which I don't think, I'm not an academic, none of us are like college professors or anything who teach literature, obviously. So if I was in one of those classes and teaching it, I think I'd be fascinating. There's a lot of symbolism. There's a lot of interesting allegories, metaphors. The writing is beautiful. Like if you want a piece of writing that displays raw brutality, go no further than Blood Meridian. And I think from like an academic college perspective, there's a lot there. There's a lot to unpack. It's very good. But if you're just sitting to want to casually read a book, then pick something else for sure.
Oh, great.
I also was really bummed that the judge didn't die. That's like the biggest spoiler. I really thought the kid was gonna come back and kill him, but he didn't.
No. The part that I thought was crazy, and I had to look this up, like the ending, because I didn't understand. The reason they don't detail what happens to the kid is because supposedly they're supposed to imply that it was so awful they couldn't write it and like write it. They didn't write it down. Which like you like have this whole book of these awful things. So I'm like, what gets worse than that?
Yeah.
Well, that was dark.
That was Blood Meridian.
Well, the interesting thing is we have a lot more to say about it than I think most any other book that we've read. You know, there's a lot to talk about. There's a lot to unpack with this book, both good and bad, maybe mostly bad.
I mean like evil, but the book wasn't bad, right? It was just, well, Andrea might disagree, but like the subject matter was just like some parts of it were just evil.
Mm.
The other weird thing, sorry, while we're going on, did anybody else get bothered by the fact Andrea froze now? Is Andrea here?
I'm not frozen.
Oh, there we go. Andrea. Thank God. The thing that bothered me also about the judge, aside from the violence, right? Is like, who the hell does this? Going around, like, writing down and like trying to understand like ancient like artifacts, right, and history and the world, and then destroying them because he wants to be like the one that like only one that knows about them. Like, that's weird.
Still
Also,
happens to
he
this
had no
day.
hair. That was weird.
Yeah, he was also hairless and naked a lot, which yeah, I agree is weird.
They mentioned that like all the time, and I was like, okay, so I like envisioning like a naked mole rat. I don't know.
Yes. I agree with you. That's what I saw in my mind too. Weird.
It was an interesting read. Any other thoughts about this lovely, this lovely book? Cool.